Hello and welcome to coverage of the semifinals from Grand Prix Montreal. Maria Bartholdi joined by Reed Duke. Here in the booth, Michael Van Vols on the left side of his screen versus Izzet Croute on the right. Demir splashing red for Izzet Croute, and Michael Van Vols playing an absolutely beautiful Boros deck. The only Boros drafter at the table, and he got everything. Let's kick it off with an amazing true drop here in Boros Challenger.
Yep, just the way he wants to start, a way above par 2 drop. Boros Challenger, you know, one of the best non-rares you can get in this guild, with the mentor ability being so powerful, a mana sink in case you draw a couple too many lands, and just difficult to get into combat with, especially early in the game.
Fresh-faced Recruit is the follow-up play for Van Vols. Here we see that Darkblade Agent, bread and butter of Demir, coming down on 3 for Izzet Croute. 3 toughness on the table now. We'll see what Van Vols plays this turn.
So a very basic example of something Michael could do here is play his 4th land, pre-combat pump the Boros Challenger, and attack with 2 3-power creatures, leaving Izzet with few good blocks. But that would mean not developing his board, and it would mean potentially being vulnerable to a Darkblade Agent. But I like this play better. He doesn't force through any damage, but he continues developing his board and maintaining the pressure on Izzet for next turn.
Wojek Bodyguard down for 3 here for Van Vols this turn. 3/3 can't attack or block alone with Mentor. Been just a fabulous card all weekend. Here's a Rampaging Monument now from Croute. Comes in with 3+1/+1 counters. You get to add to that if you play any more multicolored spells.
Already fairly decent blocker, threatening to, for example, trade with Wojek Bodyguard, but can even grow bigger depending on what's in Izzet's hand and if it survives this turn.
Yeah, it's a pretty scary situation already across the table from from Izzet Croute, with the Boros Legion slowly starting to assemble here.
Yeah, and you can tell, you've mentioned it a couple times this weekend, mentoring onto that fresh-faced Recruit just makes it so difficult to block. So Wojek Bodyguard threatening a reasonable trade, but leaving behind a +1/+1 counter that's going to make fresh-faced Elite an unblockable major threat that can unload some damage.
And the Bodyguard, you know, trading in combat potentially here too, not that bad either after it's left behind a +1/+1 counter.
Okay, so going to mentor onto the fresh-faced Recruit. One play that I see for Izzet Croute is that he could double block the Boros Challenger, which, if Michael doesn't have an instant, would mean he needs to either just bin his creature at no value, or sink his entire turn's worth of mana into pumping and trading with the Rampaging Monument. So double block, always risky. Something like a Sure Strike could ruin his day, but I think it would go pretty well for Izzet if Michael is just planning on activating the ability rather than having an instant.
2 cards left in hand for Van Vols. And yep, he is taking just the play you described here, Reed, it looks like, lining up that double block there on the Challenger. What's Michael going to do? In fact, he is going to pump it to trade with the Monument.
Okay, so Izzet Croute taking some damage here, but at least Michael's not adding anything to the board, and this would be a good turn if he could have, say, something like a Deadly Visit. He could take a little bit of the pressure off and get a nice trigger off of Darkblade Agent. Something that can affect the board while surveilling would be completely ideal.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Watcher in the Mist, although I don't think he has that one.
I think I see an Artful Takedown in his hand. All right, first things first, Darkblade Agent swinging on in here. And I believe that's going to be the play.
And one thing that could come up in this game is, as powerful as Wojek Bodyguard is, Izzet Croute with a Grixis-colored deck packed full of removal spells, he could try to manage it by killing all of the other creatures.
Yeah, that's true. Stranding it there on the battlefield all alone. And yeah, here's that decision played out, Reed. Fresh-faced Recruit is actually going to fall, and the Bodyguard is going to be tapped.
And no play for Michael Van Vols, meaning the Wojek Bodyguard is probably not going to be able to attack unless he's able to pair it with a haste creature.
All right, Darkblade Agent able to get in there again, and here's a Leapfrog adding pressure to the battlefield here for Izzet Croute. Rock Charger for Michael Van Vols. Life total 16 to 12. but Croute seems to be stabilizing here.
Definitely, he got a free turn of reprieve where Michael did not add anything to the battlefield with his 5th land drop, and Wojek Bodyguard not a threat yet, so Izzet able to get another creature out there and set up for whatever he can do to defend himself this turn.
All right, Leapfrog here entering the fray. Van Vols quickly takes it, falling to 13.
All right, City Watch Sphinx,
Nice.
a really nice play to the board, but if Michael can kill it, that means he's coming in for 5 in the air, getting a free Mentor trigger. So this is a big turn to see if Michael can remove that Sphinx, and if he can't, Izzet Croute has taken firm control over the game.
All right, big decision time here for Van Vols. Really important turn. Cosmotronic Wave. Okay, well, can't kill it, but I can kill a frog, and your creatures can't block.
Yeah, so that's a nice play. He would have maybe preferred to get rid of the 5/4 flying, but still a 1-for-1 trade where he's able to attack, get some damage, and mentor, leaving himself open to, if he has a good top deck next turn, he can get right back in this game and force through that last 7 points of damage.
There's the red splash there for Izzet Croute. Down to 7, swinging on in, though. Disdainful Stroke in hand. I want to say that's a Night Veil Predator, too. Oh, look at this. Dispersal.
So that's going to return the largest converted mana cost card that Michael Van Vols controls. In this case, it's up to Michael to choose which of his 2 creatures, and then he has to discard, but just a mountain hitting the bin.
Yeah, first time I've seen Dispersal cast this weekend. Best way to do it is if they've got no cards left in hand, force them to discard their best card.
So it's a big turn for Michael to pick up something, because if he has to leave the Rock Charger back to block one of these creatures and potentially lose it in combat, it's going to be really hard for him to get any more traction. But
there's the Bodyguard hitting the table once again for Van Vols. I want to say it's a Sunhome Stalwart sitting in his hand. Sure enough, there it is, the 2/2 First Strike Mentor.
one of the things both these players should be focused on is keeping Michael, well, from Michael's perspective, keeping in a position to top deck Inescapable Blaze, and from Isaac's position, taking away that as a possible top deck, because Michael can still steal the game if he's able to get through any one of these 3 creatures and draw that 6 damage to any target spell.
Yeah, this is a card you cannot forget about. Night Veil Predator for Croute.
So Croute able to leave 2 blockers back. Maybe he has an instant to deal with a 3rd attacker, but also pressuring Michael's life total, giving him as few draw steps as he possibly can, which is the way to play a situation like this if you've taken tenuous control over the game.
All right, Van Vols living off the top of his deck here. All right, we're going to swing on in. 3/3 First Striker. Not bad. Mentor trigger there from the Wojek Bodyguard. Looks like the Darkblade Agent might be taking one for the team here.
Yeah, interesting situation. Van Vols has to leave back the flying creature to survive Izzet Croute's attack. Here, First Strike takes out the Agent, and 3 more damage from Wojek Bodyguard. So the game remaining close.
All right, draw there for Izzet Croute. Turns the creature sideways. And that is enough. Izzet Croute takes game number 1 here in the semifinals over Michael Van Vols.
Yeah, I guess we hadn't updated the life totals from the previous attack, but Michael was just dead to the 2 flyers.
All right, so Boros, met its match there, Reed.
Yeah, Croute with the nice defensive play. I think the profitable double block on the 5th turn of the game was very important, and then Michael Van Val's not able to continue forcing through damage once the City Watch Sphinx stuck on the battlefield.
Here's a look at Michael's deck list that he drafted. If you haven't gotten a look at this yet, I mean, take a look. Beautiful Boros creation. Venerated Loxodon, 3 Sky Knight Legionnaires, Challenger, Guild Mage, Integrity, Intervention.
Yeah, and this is effectively premium cards all the way up the curve.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what I would change here.
Yeah, nothing. He's got plenty of Mentor, Sunholm Stalwart, and Boros Challenger, fantastic Wojak Bodyguard. So those can all add counters to Healer's Hawk. He even has Integrity Intervention, which is probably the best combat trick available for a Boros deck, plus doubling as a just hard removal spell. So really, all the pieces are in place here for Michael Van Val's. The one thing to keep an eye on is if his mana can come out smooth, if he can hit his 3rd land drop on time, but also not draw too many lands and lack the pressure he needs to really put his opponent in the corner.
All right, let's take a look at Izzet Croute's deck here. Dimir splashing red for that Command the Storm there, and that expansion explosion that you see hidden underneath the Discovery Dispersal. Angry Dimir, as some would call it.
This is a really nice deck as well, and we saw it play out very nicely in game number 1, where he's able to stabilize and eventually win the game in short order with City Watch Sphinx. What I want to keep an eye on is, again, the mana working out. If he can get all his colors and not be hurt too much by the enters the battlefield lands, and then that key card, Ritual of Soot, which that's one of the cards that can actually allow him to reset the board and come back if Michael Van Val's has a really nice aggressive draw and ends up making his creatures too large via Mentor to combat with blockers.
Vidalcan Mesmerist in this list, kind of an interesting aggressive blue card.
I think that's mostly just a placeholder, just something that he wants to be able to add to the board early and maybe trade off against his opponent's first creature. He's not really looking to get the opponent down to 14 with his 2-drop. That's not necessarily part of the plan. He just wants to maintain a nice curve of creatures and have enough cheap cards when you're drawing extras and surveilling and stuff that he can keep pace and make full use of everything he's drawing into.
There's a look at our 2 players here as they sideboarded up for game number 2 here in our semifinals. You can see that they do have access to the pools of the other players because of the coverage.
Both players got to be nervous here. If you're Izzet Croute, you're looking at the deck list and saying, "Wow, this is this is a deadly Boros deck. If I miss a beat, my opponent's not going to give me any breathing room." But if you're Michael Van Val's, you're already down a game. You're seeing that Ritual of Soot. That's a card that, you know what? Some of your draws might be strong enough to play around a little bit, but sometimes you're just going to have to close your eyes and hope your opponent doesn't have it. So that's never too good of a feeling, particularly when you're probably really excited about the deck you've drafted.
And it's not something you can necessarily play around either, because if you're playing around it, it's kind of like you're just not doing what you're supposed to be doing with your deck.
Right, you know, if his draw is great, he goes right up the curve and can stick some 4 and 5 mana creatures, amazing. But you know, sometimes you're not going to be in a position to hold back your Sky Knight Legionnaire or hold back your fresh-faced recruit. You just gotta play them out, and as you mentioned, if you're not playing them out, they're not doing their job.
In this tournament, as well as this top 8, a big deal for both of our players that we have here. Michael Van Val's very excited to be heading to his first Pro Tour off of this top 8, so congratulations to him. Always super exciting. Do you remember what that felt like, Reed?
Yeah, it was the best. It was, you know, a lot of people play for a lot of years before they ever make it to the Pro Tour, and getting to compete on the big stage is the dream of a lot of competitive Magic players. So congratulations to any of our first-time Pro Tour players making it via the top 8 of Grand Prix Montreal this weekend.
When did you make your first Pro Tour?
It was 2010. And just to put that in perspective, I started playing Magic in 1995. So I was at it. I was on the job a lot of years before I ever made it to the Pro Tour.
All right, so I should feel okay.
Yeah, you're doing just fine.
One day, my 3 pro points, I'll ride them all the way to gold. All right, players drawing their opening hands here for game number 2. See if we have to resolve any mulligans before we can get underway. Boros in the hands of Michael Van Vols versus Dimir Splashing Red in the hands of Izzet Croute. And we are good to go. Here we go. Game number 2. Izzet Croute currently up a game over Van Vols. 2 drop right on time here in the form of Skyline Scout. And all the colors of mana for Izzet Croute.
Both players with good draws. I said to keep an eye on the mana, but Michael Van Vols already with both colors. Looks like he's going to hit his 3rd land drop. And Izzet Croute already with 3 colors, so he would have loved to have a 2-drop, but this is, sort of what he signed up for. And if he can play something like a Darkblade Agent, that'll do a pretty nice job stabilizing the board.
All right, a couple of Skyline Scouts there for Van Vols. A Leapfrog on the other side of the table for Izzet Croute.
Good that it can trade off with the Skyline Scout, but not as good as a Darkblade Agent would have been, because Michael now has the flexibility to send both his creatures in and just say, okay, I'll trade. I don't have to spend any mana getting through your blocker, and then I can play another creature or 2 and keep the pressure on. Whoa.
Okay. Well, maybe he didn't have anything else to do for the turn. Pays to send both of the Skyline Scouts into the air, though, hitting Croute down to 14. Leapfrog answers right back with a hard 3.
Oh, and I can actually see, Maria, why Michael Van Vols is spending mana to more aggressively attack Izzet Croute's life total. He has Inescapable Blaze in his hand. So
I
it's
see.
not that many more points of damage before his opponent is in burn range. And this is actually a great plan for playing around that Ritual of Soot, because if the Ritual wipes his board, if his opponent's low enough, he can still win the game with Inescapable Blaze.
Okay, we'll see what he chooses to do here. Rampaging Monument from Croute last turn. A 3/3 puts up a body that could block either of those Skyline Scouts, but once again, he's just sending them to the skies, down to 10. All right, I like it. If I'm the opponent, I'm like, haha, he must be flooding out.
Yeah, it's true. Izzet Croute might be thinking of one of 2 possibilities.
Yes.
One is very good for me if my opponent just has no spells in hand. The other is very, very bad.
All right, in come the 3/3s here from Izzet Croute. Down to 11 for Michael Van Vols. And Mephitic Vapors here from Croute will clear up the board.
It's a great one. It's going to kill his own Leapfrog, which is not ideal, but anytime you can get to turn 6 and have the Boros player with no creatures, that's really something to be happy about.
Yeah, I got to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief there.
Yep, and there you see Crawl Swarm hitting the bin.
Nice.
That's something that could come in handy a handful of turns down the road.
All right. Well, we're at the critical amount of mana here for Van Vols, and there's a Parhelion Patrol to keep pressure on in the air.
But one thing is, if Michael is devoting all of these resources and mana to attacking Izzet Croute's life total, he's got to start worrying about his own life total. He's already down to 8 against, well, now 8 power worth of creatures.
Yeah, there's a City Watch Sphinx. Parhelion Patrol can't attack through that unless he's got some kind of trick here.
That's the ideal answer.
There we go, Luminous Bonds.
Oh, man. And that's 4 more damage, putting Croute down to 6. So Izzet needs to gain some life, make his opponent discard, or deal 8 damage, or he's done for.
Yeah, that's the magic number right there. This is just like the best feeling in the world if you're Michael Van Vols. Although Izzet Croute does have access to counter magic in his list.
Inescapable Blaze.
Oh, it can't be countered.
First line, yeah.
You're right.
Might come in handy here.
All right, there's another City Watch Sphinx, but that is not going to do it. Boom, Inescapable Blaze. And down he goes in a fire. Michael Van Vols evening things up here. 1 game apiece. And you can see that sigh of relief there on his face. Whew. Got through and did it.
Yeah, great job by him playing to that concerted game plan, really focusing on the one resource that mattered in that game, which was indeed Izzet Croute's life total.
Yeah, that was really awesome to see, those early plays, spending mana to send the Skyline Scouts up into the skies to make sure we keep the pressure on no matter what, so that we can cast our Inescapable Blaze. Once again, to the sideboards, our players go here in the semis.
And we did see a nice sideboard card from Izzet Croute there in Mephitic Vapors.
Absolutely.
That's sort of a much more situational sweeper, but a nice complement to the Ritual of Soot as a way to come back if Michael does have a really nice draw and puts a couple creatures onto the battlefield before you're ready for them.
Van Vols, while this will be his first Pro Tour appearance, Izzet Croute has actually made day 2 of the Pro Tour a couple of times already. Pretty cool. Most critical cards from his sealed deck was 2 copies of Status Statue. Played Sultai and sealed.
That sounds quite nice.
Oh, yeah. In draft, he drafted Dimir 3-0. He had 2 copies of Disinformation Campaign, a card that I just love. Really, really fun. And he played Dimir Splashing Green to another 3-0, in which case he also had 2 copies of Status Statue and 2 Underrealm Lich.
So he's had the Dimir Guild on his side for every deck he's played over the course of this weekend.
Yeah, and really comfortable with it, too. We've seen a lot of cool Magic this entire weekend, both in sealed and in draft today, with the players at our top tables. I don't know about you, Reed, but this set just is full of surprises and just feels really sweet to watch and to play.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun this weekend.
What are you most excited to try and draft?
I want to have a turn with Niv Mizzet. Everyone else in the room has gotten to play with it, but
is this because you've lost to it or seen it on the table across from you too many times?
yeah.
You're jealous.
It seemed the higher we climbed in the standings, the more prevalent Niv Mizzet was.
Yeah, there may be some kind of correlation there. I don't know. We're going to have to put our scientists on it. Try and measure that. Figure out why it might be. We were talking earlier this weekend about how terrified we are of seeing Niv Mizzet once our opponent plays blue and red mana. Seems like they always have it. Let's see if I can get an update, potentially, if we're not going to show our second match, what's happening in the feature match area. Their other table. Here in the semis. All right, we've drawn our hands here for game number 3.
They're probably on turn 4 of game 1 or something like that. So.
Yeah.
Michael Van Vols, I appreciate his play and his deck with the speed that he's moving through these matches.
We got to go to dinner. All right, so both of our players here are going to be on a mulligan. Never feels as bad when we both go to 6. We were talking earlier today, too, about mulligan decisions and how rarely you choose to go to 5. And I don't know, it's stuff like that that I find really interesting to hear from pro players, because mulligan decisions, I think, are another one of those make or break points where tiny, what seem like small decisions end up being actually enormous in the effect of the game.
Yeah, the scry rule has really lessened the need to go down to 5 cards, because even if you have a risky 6-card hand, the scry improves your chances of getting there. So I would rather gamble with 6 cards and hope the top of my library delivers than mulligan to 5 and just be so low on resources that I feel stifled that I almost can't play. That said, I mean, sometimes you look at your 6 and there's just no lands. You got to go to 5.
All right, let's see if our players like their 6. We've mentioned the ability of Boros to take mulligans a little bit easier than some other guilds, just because of the cheap cost of their creatures.
Izzet Croute seemed to have a pretty nice 6-card hand. He had Island, Swamp, Chromatic Lantern, a blue 2-drop creature. So he's all set. His hand can develop. And Michael Van Vols is...
Gosh, I think he needs another land.
But both players have decided to keep.
All right, scries to the bottom there. All right, there's a mountain to kick things off here in game number 3, all tied up. Izzet Croute versus Michael Van Vols. Vidalcan Mesmerist on turn 2 for Croute, and no second land for
yeah,
Michael Van
you read the
Vols.
situation right, Maria. He was looking for a land, but that's exactly what I said I would do. Usually when I have a 6-card hand with 1 land and a scry, I say, you know what, I'm going to take my chances.
Exactly.
Going down to 5 is too bad. And here he's able to hit his second mountain on turn 3. It's a start.
It's a start. We'll see if it can get him there. The Mesmerist able to attack in, shrink down the fresh-faced Recruit.
Wow, and Izzet Croute misses his land drop as well.
Oh, really?
So
yeah,
this,
he did.
This might be a contest of which player can find their 3rd land faster. So that'll mean a big advantage in this game.
All right, another 2 in for Michael Van Vols here. There's the 3rd land.
But it's a mountain. He really needs a plains.
Yeah. His deck really needs white mana. Trading hits of 2, back and forth, back and forth. No 3rd land for Croute. Was that a plains?
It was.
Okay, things are looking good for Van Vols, getting in for 2 once again with a fresh-faced Recruit.
Surely a bit of frustration from Izzet Croute to go from your opponent passing on turn 2 with nothing but a mountain in play to actually you being the one stuck on lands. But these things do happen, especially when both players mulligan. There's a lot of volatility in whose draw shapes up.
All right, well, Izzet has managed to find his 3rd land, and on top of that, it is a splash color of red. Is it too little, too late?
Well, we did talk about those reset buttons in his deck. That Ritual of Soot, even if he does fall behind, that's something he can always hope for to claw back. And hitting his land surely unlocked quite a few options for him. But he's got his work cut out for him since Michael Van Vols' deck is very punishing. Beautiful printing of Mountain there.
All right, he thought about it long and hard. Chromatic Lantern, what's the play? Slowly building up his mana base here. The Mesmerist left back. There's a Hunted Witness for Michael. Oh.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Venerated Loxodon here for Van Vols. All 3 creatures bow down to its power and are rewarded with +1/+1 counters. And talk about a way to get out of mana screw.
That's a two mana card that just added 7 power and toughness to the battlefield. It's
unbelievable.
Unbelievable in a game where both players are choked on mana and just jockeying for anything they can. I'm feeling for Izzet Croute here. He has a long road ahead of him to come back. He's probably going to need Ritual of Soot and then some.
All right, well, he's digging right now. Notion Rain there. Taking a hit, drawing some cards. What did he find? It's kind of Ritual of Soot or bust at this point. Two mana up, spends it here to dig even deeper into his deck. He just finds a land and a leapfrog. What does he draw? Another land.
Now, I think Izzet is thinking along the same lines as we are, which is that I'm not going to win fair and square by playing 2/3 creatures and single target removal spells. I need to find my rare. I need to find Ritual of Soot, and I'm going to spend a lot of resources digging for it because that's how my comeback has to begin.
Meanwhile, Michael Van Vols doing what Boros wants to do here, swinging for the fences, Mentor trigger onto the Hunted Witness. Vidalcan Mesmerist falls to the Venerated Loxodon. In for a giant chunk of damage. There's another threat, Parhelion Prototal, Croute down to 5. And he just extends the hand. That is Michael Van Vols on to the finals here at Grand Prix Montreal with an excellent Boros deck. Congratulations there to Izzet Croute. Fabulous finish as well. And a really nice Dimir deck splashing red.
I think he saw his life flash before his eyes when he missed his second land drop in that game, but Croute, thankfully, from Michael's perspective, stumbled as well. he was able to find a couple more lands, and that Venerated Loxodon just too much for the Dimir deck to overcome.
I always like to see the players after, a really important, tense match like this talking about the plays that they could have made in the game, that they did make, what they had in their hand, commiserating sometimes with the other player. All right, here we go. More Magic to watch. We get to peek in here on our other match of semifinals, Christopher Leonard versus Andrew Reeser.
Just in time. Looks like the players are sideboarding for Game 3.
Awesome.
So to recap, this was Andrew Reeser, our Selesnya drafter, although sadly he did not get that super late March of the Multitudes. He's got to settle for Imara, Soul of the Accord, and splashing into black for Vraska, Golgari Queen as some of his highlights.
Yeah, look at our feature match area there as we set things up for game number 3 for these players, kind of shuffling up. Making sure our cameras are all good to go. That's Stephen Leeming down there running our feature match. Michael Van Vols, he's ready to go. He's like, bring on the finals. Mm-hmm. And some giant with BDM over there, whoever that is.
We don't get to appreciate how tall Marshall is because he's usually sitting when we see him on camera.
That's true. He is a giant. We have a few of them in Magic. Andrew Reeser works as a consultant. Previous Magic accomplishments listed as a top 4 at a regional PTQ. Winning this tournament would be the most meaningful accomplishment in Magic, and I've been playing off and on since Mirrodin, so it'd be nice to finally add a trophy, says Andrew Reeser. Christopher's from Montreal, right here in town. Andrew, by the way, from Boston. He's an inventory technician, and he's the one who wrote on his sheet that it would mean a lot, all caps, 3 exclamation points winning this tournament. All right, here we go. Drawing our opening cards for game number 3, the deciding game here in this match in our semifinals. Who will be facing the Boros deck of Michael Van Vols? And we are off to the races here. Christopher with Izzet, Andrew with Selesnya.
Christopher's deck, by the way, was the one we saw on camera when we were setting up our semifinal bracket. This is the Izzet deck with no rares, but otherwise looking really, really nice. Double Goblin Electromancer, double Hypothesizzle, some good jumpstart spells, everything you want in an Izzet deck.
All right, here's a great card in Izzet. Smelt Ward Minotaur makes creatures unable to block if you cast an instant or sorcery. Hitchclaw Recluse. There's a creature that wants to block. 1/4 spider with reach.
And I'm pleased to see that Urban Utopia getting a little bit of love. That's a card we haven't seen much of over the course of the weekend, but a really nice, unique card that can facilitate these multicolored green decks.
Especially when you're splashing black for a few really high-power cards, like Andrew Reeser.
It's perfect with Vraska, in fact, because you can
absolutely
fix your mana to cast her and then sacrifice it to her +2 ability.
Rebel Belt Boar joins the team for Leonard, able to help knock Reeser down to 16. Here's a Pelt Collector for Andrew as well. District Guide. Here we'll put a counter onto the Pelt Collector, and we can go search up a land.
So both players developing really nicely. Andrew Reeser triggering his Pelt Collector. He's got Hitchclaw Recluse to hold down the fort, and his mana is all set to deploy any of those powerful rares that he might find later on.
District Guide extra good because she can find gates. And he's just done that with Golgari Guild Gate. Back over to Christopher. Andrew Reeser's put up a bit of a wall here.
Many of the games that we've watched this weekend, it's felt like a player established a sizable advantage early in the game, and I could sort of identify which player was ahead. But this game looking very even, actually.
Yes.
Christopher Leonard making a good play of stopping that Pelt Collector before it gets out of control and presenting a pretty reasonable attack, but it's not like it's an emergency for Andrew Reeser. He still has 11 points of life and 2 very good blockers on the battlefield.
Direct current, as you mentioned, taking down that pelt collector there. Reeser falling to 11 after that attack. 1-4 and a 2-2 still out there, and if you play Selesnya, there's one thing that must be true. You're playing big cards. This one not as big as some, but gains 4 life, which is pretty important. Locks down and restore.
I see that Andrew Reeser drafted 3 Loxodon Restorers, decided to start 1 in his main deck.
Okay.
But I really like prioritizing that card as it's proven itself to be a really nice sideboard card against these aggressive red decks that are attacking your life total.
Oh yeah, we've seen it absolutely save people from the brink of death this weekend. Five mana available to Christopher this turn. And we're going to spend all of it here. To Hypothesizzle. Card that's just as fun to resolve as you might think. Draw a couple of cards. Then you may discard an on-land card. When you do, it deals 4 damage to target creature. And since we've cast this instant, we get to say one of Andrew Reeser's creatures cannot block. The painting on this, I think, is absolutely fabulous, and it is actually a real work of art, as in painted with oils.
And is that different from many Magic cards?
A lot of them are done digitally these days, too.
Well, that is cool. That's a great fact to know.
Fun fact, yeah. I happen to know because I know the person who bought it.
Jealous of that a little bit?
I know, it's so cool.
So keep an eye there. Christopher Leonard discarded Gravitic Punch.
Okay.
That's something he might turn to a little bit later if Andrew Reeser is too reckless with his life total. And you can see the Smelt Ward Minotaur really doing a lot of work in an aggressive Izzet deck, forcing through blockers. I mean, Andrew Reeser put this Hitchclaw Recluse in his deck for this exact situation where he wanted to defend himself against the smaller creatures of the Izzet deck, but Smelt Ward Minotaur just completely invalidating it so far.
Absolutely. Reeser down to 13. Leonard at 20. So life total completely untouched at this point in the game. And was just able to draw a couple of cards there. Discarding Gravitic Punch, as you mentioned, not necessarily that bad. Has Jumpstart. 3 cards left in Christopher's hand. Andrew asks. Andrew thinking very carefully about the play this turn. Rosemane Centaur. Tapping, attacking there with the district guide will take Christopher down to 18. I could go on and on about the art in the set. I love it.
Very colorful.
Setting it in fall in Ravnica, I think, was just a genius idea. Fall, my favorite season. And you can already tell the Izzet player here trying to figure out how to deal the most damage. How soon can I get my opponent dead? All right, Sure Strike, pre-combat. I like it. Gravitic Punch.
Is this lethal?
Oh my gosh, it is! Wow! Christopher Leonard takes down Andrew Reeser here in the semifinals in very spectacular Izzet fashion. We've been saying it all weekend. Beware, it can kill you out of nowhere, and it just did.
Smelt Ward Minotaur, a hero in that game. Amazing. I mean, Andrew Reeser's draw was... There was nothing bad about it. He was able to defend himself well with creatures curve out, and he must have felt like he was doing fine. But the Smelt Ward Minotaur, in combination with all those spells and the Jumpstart cards in particular, it just makes it so hard. So many of your cards are invalidated, and there, the flurry of action with the Gravitic Punch, which, by the way, had been discarded.
Yes.
Not cast. Yeah, coming in big.
All right, what do you think about the matchup heading into our finals? We've got that Izzet deck versus that Boros deck.
Well, I got to tell you, Christopher Leonard, he had some cute tricks, but I don't think they're going to work against Michael Van Vols. I think trying to set up a resilient attacking force against Boros is a losing battle because they're just going to be faster than you. You're not going to be able to plan that Smelt Ward Minotaur plus Sure Strike plus Gravitic Punch combination. You're going to have to be trading off, presenting defense right from stage one. So he's going to be more focused on his cards like Direct Current to protect him, his high toughness creatures on the ground if he can find them. But I have to say, Michael Van Vols, his deck is just a cut above. I think the power level, the number of uncommons and gold cards is a lot higher, and the Boros player I give the advantage to.
All right, well, we're about to see what happens. Don't go anywhere. It's almost time for the finals here at Grand Prix Montreal.